the wheels come off, Cov. Would you agree with that?
They created absolutely nothing. It was a pathetic, passive second half performance.
I don't believe in changing manager straight away, but I would probably say...
Moyes has spoken, hasn't he? He loves Preston. He wants Preston to get promoted. I think he said that last week.
I'm not sure I see making the top 6.
Hello guys and welcome back to the Sportsman Untitled, brought to you by Betfred, and also I think maybe this week brought to you by Lemsip as well, because Gab Sutton and Conor McGilligan are feeling slightly under the weather, but we're all at home. We're going to bring you a show anyway. We've had a great year. I hope you've all had a good New Year as well and a good Christmas. In 2025, just to go over a few of the stats, we garnered more than 500,000 views, grew 2,500 subscribers, and now have a monthly viewership of 33,000, more than the CBS Arena, that is. But one thing we need help is that 85% of you watching these videos are not subscribed. So please do press that subscribe button. Gab, I think there's only one place to start in the Championship this week. Unfortunately, it was Birmingham 3, Coventry 2 at St Andrews. Cov, 1 point in their last 3 games, 8 points in their last 6. The wheels coming off defensively, just so poor, aren't they, at the minute?
Yeah. I think January's come at the right time. I think we can say that much with regards to Coventry City. I don't think we can go much further than that, because I think this group of players have done phenomenally well with such a small squad to generate the kind of form that you have and put yourselves in this what remains an excellent position. But I think Frank Lampard will be talking to Doug King and the board and saying, look, I need a bit of help in January. We need another 4 or 5 players to get us over the line. And I certainly think another centre half could be a big one to come in.
And Conor, I can see a little smirk on your face there as the wheels come off. Cov, would you agree with that?
I'm not 100% sure the wheels have come off, but it's interesting. A few stats that I've got written down here: 1 win in 5, and obviously that was a solitary win, well, 1-0 win against Swansea. 2 wins in 8. It is a wobble side. It takes me a little bit further back, to be honest, to the Championship campaign last season, when we saw Sunderland kind of running away with it, really, for the first part of the season, top of the division, flying, and then they went through a little bit of a stuttering period. I think now it's really going to show when it comes to those sort of values of which, Roy Keane likes to go on about in terms of character and personality. But the recruitment's huge. I agree with what Gab said. Centre-backs, maybe not just a centre-back, but maybe 2 need to come in. It's a period now where you really need to see some leadership as well from Frank Lampard in terms of certain changes. Maybe subs were a little bit late at the weekend. The return of Rodoni, has it sparked as much quality as I maybe once thought that it would, him coming back into the side? I don't think so. This was a disappointing one for me, looking at this with Cov. I thought, obviously, this was one where, when you look at Brum's recent record as well, they've been really, really struggling. I think this was their first win in 4 or 5. This was one where I thought Coventry would be able to lay that marker down, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but there were a few problems in this game for me. Yeah,
absolutely. Gab, we should give Birmingham some credit first of all, though, shouldn't we? Before we get into Cov's issues. Good home win. Armin Dutch up front looked very, very strong. Some good finishes. The new left back looked very good as well. Some good attacking play from Birmingham. I thought without the ball again, they conceded a few chances, but ultimately almost having less possession seems to be working for Chris Davis in certain games.
Yeah, certainly. And I think there's 2 facets to this, Simon. I think on the one hand, we played some amazing football, and I like that Chris Davis has been able to adapt to the Championship in League One, where teams did sit off us a lot. It was death by 1,000 passes, and we would keep the ball so much, and we would really strangle teams that way. Whereas in the Championship, we're more willing to cut teams open by going forward quickly and playing on from there. I think that's helped us create a lot of chances and be one of the most creative and inventive teams in the division. On the other hand to that, and as good as and as much as the encouragement as I can take from our performance against the league leaders, there's also a frustration, because we can do that at home. We can do that to anyone at home. But away from home, we don't impose ourselves anywhere near enough. And of course, you have to make some allowances for the fact that away from home, it is a bit different, and maybe something about the inherent challenges that come with playing away from home. But you just want us to impose our game a little bit more because we know that we can do it. So really exciting performance, really happy, delighted with how well we played, but also tired with that kind of frustration that we know what we can do and we'd like to see a bit more of that on the road.
I think as well, what was interesting when it came to Birmingham at the weekend was, I think Cov sort of dominated in terms of possession. And then you look at Birmingham at the weekend having 25% at the end of the game, and then having 3 shots on target. That's not been like Birmingham at all this season, especially like away from home and at home. So maybe if they can almost implement that game plan through Chris Davis in terms of just relinquishing possession and being really proactive on the counter-attack, that could be, beneficial for them. I thought in this game in particular, Roberts was outstanding. They've decided to actually play through Dutch instead of just lumping the ball to him. I think that was important as well. So all round good, and someone to keep an eye on. And Leeds my club were linked with him a while ago now. I don't know if he came over from Philadelphia off his move since then. But Kai Wagner, he's an absolute assist king in the MLS. So it was great to see him off the mark after 6 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I also think Stansfield and Doyle coming back into that Birmingham team obviously strengthened it as well. Looked very energetic, very good. From a Cov point of view, Conor, though, there's a point you wanted to bring up as well about Bobby Thomas's late red card. Does it mean more than just a red card? It was a bit frustrating the way he got sent off. Does it speak of further problems at the club right now? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to. Yeah, you're right, Simon. And like to get your perspective on it as well, mate. I think it just Coventry are facing a little bit of pressure right now. Doug. We're just speaking about Doug putting his hand in his pockets and getting them some reinforcements in January. That simply has to happen, especially with the likes of Ipswich on the coattails. I think there's some really informed teams at this moment in time. When you look at that playoff push as well, Watford are looking extremely good at this moment in time and aren't that far off the automatic push as well. So we know that needs to happen. So maybe there's just, I don't know, maybe the adrenaline's extremely high. There's frustration in terms of, they've got back into the game, haven't they, Cov? And maybe there was a little bit of frustration there from Bobby Thomas, but from a leader at the back, an experienced man at the back, to do that in this pivotal time where games are so often, we were just speaking about it there, weren't we? 4 games in 8 days. You cannot be doing that as an experienced man at the back. It's really poor from him. And now he's out for 3 games, including a very, very crucial head-to-head with Leicester coming up next weekend. I think it's completely unprofessional.
Yeah, massively disappointed by his actions in that game. I think we'd probably lost the game at that point anyway, but it was the way he got himself sent off was just, you're right, unprofessional, frustrating, and it's the further implications now where we've come through this run of 4 games in 8 days, this bad Christmas period, but now it's almost like it's continuing on because we're going to be without him now for a couple of crucial league games and the FA Cup tie as well.
Can I just ask you, Simon, because I imagine this couple of weeks could be quite helpful for Coventry to possibly get 1 or 2 players back, but also strengthen in January. Do you think which of the areas that you think Coventry will be looking at to spend? Because I imagine there will be some incoming movement.
Yeah, interesting you guys mentioned defenders because I think it'll be the opposite end of the pitch, really. I mean, we've spoken about all season the lack of depth, the wingers. We have 2 wingers. We have Efron Mason-Clark and Tatsuro Sakamoto, and that's it. And they've been playing the whole season. We've had people filling in and the like. So it looks like we might be getting Esse from Crystal Palace potentially on loan. Raksaki's been linked as well, which would be good loan additions. I think it will be in that forward area. I think we need a number 10. Jack Rodoni hasn't come back in any sort of the form that we saw last season.
Struggled on his side. Looks like he's struggling.
Just look rusty. He's incrementally improved game by game, but it's not good enough at the moment. And we saw him as one of the best players in the league last season. It's not been anywhere near that level so far this season. But we don't have anyone else to play in that role, really, apart from Thomas Sante, who's also injured. So we're kind of short in all areas up front. Patrick Bamford was training with the club, and Frank Lampard reportedly wanted to sign him. Doug King didn't, so it didn't happen. And then he went to Sheffield United. And I think if Lampard wants something in this month, you just have to give it to him. We're not going to get a better chance to get promoted than where we are right now. Investment, if we need to spend 10 million quid this window, do it. It's the biggest gamble we can possibly take, but we're not going to be in a position like this ever again. Have a good start to the season as we've just had. So this is the season we've got to go for it. You're right, Gab. These next 2 weeks are absolutely crucial. I think it'll be really important for the players to have some time off. I think the FA Cup game, play a second string, do whatever with it. It's not important to us right now. And use these 2 weeks to get some good players in, whether on loan or permanently. because the other teams are coming for us. We're the team to be shot at the moment. We're slipping up a bit.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And from being in that position myself as a football fan, you are the team right now who everybody wants to see fall. Everybody will raise the game to play Coventry right now because you are the top of the table. And with that rustiness that you've shown recently, you're going to be a target. And yeah, it's all about characters now. It's about personalities. We can't just always. I do think there's a lot of quality still in that side, Si, and I still think it is about personnel stepping up. That Cov side at the weekend was good enough to beat that Birmingham side. So yeah, that needs to be taken into consideration as well. But yeah, I agree with you, mate. There definitely needs to be reinforcements, but also personnel improvement, in my opinion.
100%. We did see some improvement from Middlesbrough, Kim Hellberg's team, ending a slightly sticky patch, Gab, with a massive 4-0 win over Southampton. All 4 goals coming in the second half. Interestingly, there were a lot of chances at both ends in this one. Certainly in the first half, Southampton could have scored a couple, but then Middlesbrough kicked into gear and tore them apart. Morgan Whittaker, 2 goals, are absolutely flying.
Yeah, absolutely. I think really disappointed by Southampton's second half performance because they did look very easy to carve open. They looked passive. And I'd be concerned that maybe that initial form under Tonda Eckert was that a bit of a flash in the pan? I think Southampton fans are asking those questions now and whether the board maybe went a bit early in terms of committing their future to him. But from Middlesbrough's point of view, you have to give Kim Hellberg and his players enormous credit, and especially Morgan Whittaker, who was Boro's best player on the day, because of the link-up play that he brings. And we've spoken about Whittaker, haven't we, Simon, as something of an enigmatic talent, someone who's shown flashes of what he can do previously, but maybe we've kind of questioned him from an application point of view or a consistency standpoint. He seems to be finding it under Kim Hellberg, so that's one thing about Middlesbrough that really excites me. And we've spoken about Coventry maybe showing some mild signs of vulnerability, depending on what they do this January. I think what's important to say at the moment is that in Middlesbrough and in Ipswich Town, who we may come on to, there are 2 serious automatic promotion contenders who could have legs.
And no goals in 4 games before this game, Conor, ending it with 4 goals in one half of football. It's just what Middlesbrough needed, the perfect way to start 2026 for them, and really put the pressure on Coventry with Ipswich's game being postponed as well. Yeah,
I don't know if you guys saw as well, Melander at the back for Boro. I thought he looked immense. He looked absolutely immense, especially in that second half in that rear guard, where at points, you know, they faced a little bit, but I will sort of agree, and the stats back it up as well. When you're looking at Southampton's second half performance, they created absolutely nothing. It was a pathetic, passive second half performance from a Southampton side, which is still riddled with quality. You know, I look at that team and I think there's personnel. Again, we've spoken about Coventry, but Southampton, a recently relegated side, who still have personnel in that team that should be able to turn games. And it's not happening at this moment in time. You know, you look at the form guide; they're right down there at the bottom. And crucially now for Middlesbrough, I mean, they're 21st in the form table. But now, obviously, going into a new year, you know, a new start and some really good performances. Si, you just mentioned Morgan Whittaker as well. Good to see his sort of career turning round a little bit. Obviously, he went through that barren phase, didn't he, where people were questioning that price tag and his ability. But it's good to see that turning round a little bit, and Boro getting that clean sheet as well, which, you know, can be very, very difficult coming up against the Southampton side. But I'd be really, really worried if I was a Southampton fan, especially with the goals scored tally at this moment in time, which isn't great.
Very interestingly, for the automatic promotion race, we know Ipswich are well in it, but Leicester are in 14th, Southampton are in 15th, Sheffield United are in 16th, obviously in slightly better form than the other 2, but there's 3 parachute payment teams there, and there's a massive, massive opportunity. We would expect one of Coventry, Middlesbrough, or even one of the playoff teams to finish in that top 2 right now, right, Gab?
Yeah, I think I would still expect Coventry to win the league, depending on whether they get the right additions this month. Do you disagree with that, Conor? You don't think Coventry win the league?
I think if you look at the head-to-heads we played with Ipswich, we lost 5-0 on aggregate to them. They're just the quality they've got is immense. I don't think there's a way to stop Ipswich at the
Coventry
moment. I know I'm in a negative mood.
Well, we don't want to turn it round. We don't want to turn it round on Cov again because we know there's a lot of quality there. But the 19th in the form table, it needs to really turn round now. At this, up against Leicester, it needs to turn round. Like, I agree with what Si said in terms of ignoring the cup, but just moving on to this, I think Ipswich are just gathering a little bit of momentum now, and I think that was. I didn't expect Ipswich to go to Coventry and be so effective in that game, to be honest with you. And like Si says, I think, for me, anyway. Sorry, we're moving on to a different topic here, aren't we?
Yeah, but I think there's a 10-point gap between the sides at the moment. And I just feel like there's a danger of getting too trapped by the kind of recency bias, because the Championship's like that. Every team goes through a bad run, don't they? And I think you've got to make some allowances for that. But for me, it depends on whether Coventry bring in the right 4 or 5 players in January. But from what I can gather, I think Doug King is going to be willing to do that because they didn't actually invest a lot in the summer.
I think as well, when you're looking at it, Gab, you look at the team that's contending with that top 2 right now. Boro, they've been in awful form, and they're still third. I'm looking at a potential outsider who are in form right now, been able to nick their way into the automatics, and there might be a team who could do that. And I think it's starting the obvious who that team is right now.
You're on about Watford?
Potentially.
I think, just on the Ipswich thing, I think they're 8 points off Coventry now, but now they have a game in hand as well. You'd expect them to win that game in hand. That's 5 points. It's not a lot over 20 games or whatever it is. So, I don't know.
It sounds like I'm hating on Coventry. I'm not, and I agree with what Gab said. The likelihood is that Cov do win the league. They turn this around, but this is a big point right now, and I keep making it. But it's a huge point to turn this season to what it once was, and I think Si, you'd agree with that, mate.
Yeah, 100%. I think from a Southampton point of view, going back to them, no wins in 6th. You're right about Tonda Eka kind of having a flash in the pan, and now they look like a really poor team again. I think Gavin Bazunu in goal is way off it recently. I think 2 of the goals he was probably at fault for in this game. I don't know. Conor, would you consider making another managerial change? Because I've seen some Southampton fans call for it already.
I don't know. I mean, what's the objective? I mean, I don't have the league table to hand, but I wonder how far they are off the playoffs now. We know the Championship in that mid-table has been so tight.
8 points. 8 points behind Watford.
8 points. Okay, so they've got enough quality in the side right now. Is there enough capital to do something in January? That is something maybe Southampton fans can let us know about in the comment section below. With a few additions, I don't think so. No, I don't think another managerial change does any continuity. Breeds success. When you look at the teams that have gone up through the playoffs and have gone up through the automatics, you want to stay with a coach, really. You don't want, and imprint and develop on those base principles. You don't want to be chopping and changing consistently. I don't think there's a hunting ground there for momentum or consistency whatsoever. So no, stick with him and maybe a little bit more in January. What do you think, Gab?
I think I don't believe in changing manager straight away, but I would probably say I don't think if I was in their shoes I would have committed to Tonda Eka at that point. I'm quite a big believer that when you have a caretaker that's doing well, actually don't be afraid to let the situation breathe and sort of see how it plays out over a longer period before making that commitment. I'm not sure I see Southampton making the top 6. That's where I am. I'm concerned about them. They've underachieved this season, and I think it's been a disappointing year for them so far.
I think it's been disappointing, but I don't know. Do you make a big change like that if they don't get into the playoffs this season? I'm not sure. I think obviously there has to be a long-term vision, top down, but it depends what they look at when it comes to Tonda. Are they invested for that long-term perspective, or was it just a short-term appointment? You'd expect it was the former, so you've got to stick with him and back him.
Yeah, you'd agree with that, but also look what happened to Alan Sheehan at Swansea, having got the permanent job after a decent little spell as the interim manager. So we'll have to wait and see on Southampton. It looks very difficult for them at this moment in time. One team that it doesn't look difficult for is Preston North End, Gab. A massive away win away at Bristol City. They're real promotion contenders. We have to take them seriously. We're over halfway through the season. They're 4th in the league. Paul Heckenbottom's doing a fantastic job. Yeah. Osmajic is back in the team. There's a lot to like, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the big thing that stands out for me about Preston North End is that they're very incisive. They're not afraid to play the ball forward early, and they've got players who like to run onto things. So having the pace of Lewis Dobbin, I think, makes a real difference because he's a constant threat in behind. They've got somebody like Alfie Devine, who I'm a big fan of. He's got some experience of English football for a couple of years under his belt now, which I think has really helped. So yeah, Osmaich in the team, as you mentioned, and I think they've also got some really rock solid defensive foundations as well. So I'm so impressed with the job Paul Heckingbottom's done. I think he's done amazing work to turn things around at Deepdale.
The one blip on their January record isn't even something they could control, really, Conor, because Armstrong's been recalled by Everton. Harrison Armstrong, he's been one of the standout midfielders in the Championship. How much could this impact them moving forward? And I mean, they're going to have to go in and replace him in this window, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I mean, he came on for Everton the other day and yesterday. And I think he looked really decent when he came on, to be honest with you. Yeah, I mean, Moyes has spoken, hasn't he? He loves Preston. He wants Preston to get promoted. I think he said that last week. And you know, if he can, if he's allowed to do so, he'd like him to go back there. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think he is decent depth, really decent Premier League depth for a team like Everton, and that's also big plaudits to Preston North End for being able to develop him to that level of which he is right now, which has definitely happened under Paul Heckingbottom. And I think he's a very underrated coach, Paul Heckingbottom, and he's doing a brilliant job now. But lads, we've got to look back at what we were just talking about when it comes to Southampton, it comes to Sheffield United. This is such an opportunity. It is such an opportunity in this Championship season. I doubt this will happen again. It might do, but I doubt it will. It's very unusual. So these teams like Preston North End, you know, teams up there like Cov, even we were speaking about Boro, they've got to really take advantage of this hole on the periphery as well. But yeah, look, back-to-back clean sheets as well, which is something to talk about. Obviously, you know, they beat Sheffield Wednesday last time out 3-0. Osmaich, I thought, had a big part to play in this game in particular. And they've got 2 home games coming up as well, Si. So a real opportunity for Preston really to slap on that ignition now and maybe try to solidify themselves as a proper playoff team.
Making us all look very stupid with our pre-season predictions of relegation struggle. Hope they can keep it up, though, because it is fantastic for the Championship. I think you're bang on, though, Conor. You look at teams coming down from the Premier League, West Ham potentially, Wolves potentially. You can't see a Leicester and a Southampton and a Sheffield United kind of repeat happening next season. So massive opportunity for those teams at the top. And a big opportunity as well, Gab, I think, for Wrexham, who are the form team in the league right now. 4 wins in a row, winning 2-1 at Derby. Matty James scoring one of the goals of the season. Phil Parkinson deserves more respect, doesn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think the big thing that stands out to Wrexham is we've talked about Kiefer Moore being the most important player to a Championship team. Well, they've been without Kiefer Moore recently, and they've coped without him. They've found another way. They've brought in Smith, who's Sam Smith, who's done really well. Other players coming into the fore, Nathan Broadhead. Produced a wonderful performance last time out. You've got Windass in there as well. So I'm a big fan of Max Cleworth and the defender that they've got, who's come through them right on their journey up from the National League a couple of years ago. They were expecting him to be loaned out to a National League club when they just got promoted to League Two. Instead, he broke into the team and hasn't looked back since. So it's great to see him sort of being on that journey with Wrexham. Yeah, I think you have to give Phil Parkinson credit, because each level that we maybe inject that next bit of doubt, perhaps, they always seem to have the answers.
Absolutely. And we've talked about the low kind of points threshold that could be for the playoffs. We've talked about the struggles of the fallen Premier League teams, and the door's wide open for a team like Wrexham, who could probably spend more this window. Conor, they're only 1 point off the playoffs. 4 wins in a row. They've done things maybe differently than we expected this season in terms of grabbing the headlines, signing big players. They did that a little bit in terms of Kiefer Moore, but they've grown into the season really, really nicely. They've understood the Championship, and now they're just winning games and going and winning these tough away games like at Pride Park.
Well, Simon, you were a big advocate to get Parkinson out.
Shut up.
As possible. No, I think it's interesting as well when you look at Wrexham at this moment in time. I think very recently there's been a bit of a change when it comes to how they are systematically. There's definitely been a change formation-wise, but it feels like there's almost like a box midfield now where they're essentially adding an extra attacker every single time they go forward, and they look so much more fluid, so much better in that transition. And I thought at the weekend, in particular in that first half, they had a flying start, a really good start. And this wasn't a poor performance from Derby as well, lads. It wasn't a poor performance from Derby. They were very decent in this game. But I thought overall, Wrexham's quality really came to the fore. And it must be exciting to be a Wrexham fan right now, because as you just said, Si, you expect them to make additions in this window, and with the quality that they've already got, Broadhead coming into a little bit of form as well, like you've just mentioned, Smith and Windass, and we've not even touched on that Matty James goal, and he was a man possessed at the weekend, but what an absolutely outrageous finish, and what an outrageous way to start the year.
Yeah, honestly, one of my favourite goals this season. Such a good strike. I just love it when midfielders shoot from that far out and it flies into the top corner. There's nothing better in football. Obviously, from a commentary perspective, Captain Ben Chiefs struggled with fitness, struggled with injuries. We knew his quality at the top end of the Championship. At Wrexham, he's managed to put together a really good string of games, and hopefully he can keep that going until the end of the season. Unfortunately, we saw Portsmouth, Ipswich and Hull Watford both postponed just before kickoff. I think the Watford game was called off like 15 minutes before. Massive frustration for their fans this weekend, but games in hand for them on the positive side moving forward. Going to do something which could be a little bit fun, a little bit hypothetical, because we're at the start of a new year, at the start of 2026, boys. But what I want to know is, how is the Championship table going to look on the 1st of January 2027? Fast forward a year. Conor, are Leeds going to be in it?
No.
Daniel Farke's a magician, not what you've been saying all season. Actually, you wanted him out, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I did. Yeah, thanks for holding me to that. But no, I think that it's going to be. This is what I mean. I think when I've mentioned just a little bit earlier on about teams really taking advantage this season, I think next season you're going to see a very similar Burnley side come down, potentially with maybe, Gary O'Neill in charge, who is a very similar type of manager to the likes of Scott Parker, who I think will be relieved of his duties pretty soon. Burnley are probably going to win the league again. If they're it's not just the fact that they're a yo-yo club, they're a very well-run club in terms of going down and being able to make that mark consistently. So you'd expect them to win the league. It's quite a boring prediction. I've got West Ham going down, and you would expect West Ham to be an absolute juggernaut next year in terms of an attraction, and one of the biggest ever teams to be relegated, let's be honest, lads. So I think they're going to be in the top two. I don't think Wolves will plummet. I don't think they'll plummet. They have got a little bit of debt right now, but I think they've got assets to sell on as well, dependent on relegation clause as well. They've got Tolu Araka there. They've got Mane, who looks brilliant, young 18-year-old lad. Strand Larson as well. So I think they've got assets to sell on. And then in the playoffs, I've kind of still got Sheffield United, Wrexham and Southampton creeping in there and in and around the relegation zone. I've probably got the three that are going to be coming up, I think, from League One.
Interesting stuff. Would you agree with that, Gab, in terms of the big boys coming down from the Premier League? Maybe a return to the norm?
Yeah, I think there'd be question marks over all the relegated clubs if it's the current three. I also think that I'm not sure how much the league's going to be strengthened in terms of teams coming up from League One. Cardiff possibly could be a competitive team if they keep Brian Barry Murphy. There's reports that someone like Strasbourg might be interested in his services because he's a very good coach. So if Cardiff lost Barry Murphy, I wouldn't be as confident in them. But if they kept him, then they could be an interesting prospect. But I would expect
just to jump in, Cardiff, Swansea and Wrexham all in the same league would be
an
awful lot of fun, wouldn't it, next season?
Yeah, exactly. So I think that would make it intriguing. But I think that other teams from League One, I'm not sure. I would expect them to be sort of certainly in the bottom eight. Unlike this season where we've got Birmingham and Wrexham coming up with plenty of resources, I think it will be a little bit different next time around. But I'd also be intrigued because I think there's teams in the Championship at the moment that have potential to make that next step. I like what QPR are building. I think from Birmingham's point of view, we've certainly got the resources to have a top-end budget. Depends whether all three of Coventry, Middlesbrough and Ipswich, who I would say are the standout teams in the Championship, whether they get promoted or whether it's somebody else, because that's going to be a big factor as well. So, and then, Sheffield United is going to repeat their 24-25 form under Chris Wilder?
Sheffield United going to crash into the playoffs and win the playoffs for once this season? It's still a possibility. So much up in the air. It's really tough to
You got any Si? Have you got any Si? You got any hypotheticals? How are Cov doing in the Prem in your hypothetical?
In the Prem? Top four?
Top
four, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you need? Top five, isn't it, for the Champions League these days?
It is funny, isn't it, for all Championship sides now, because there is a little bit of hope, and obviously I'm a Leeds fan, and we don't know what's going on with Leeds in terms of if they will stay up. But you look at Sunderland, and Sunderland are almost a certainty now, aren't they? So I think a lot of Championship clubs will be looking at that and thinking, if we can emulate that, if we can replicate that to a certain level, might give ourselves a chance. Because let's be honest, lads, for years it's just been the same blueprint, year in, year out, really.
If only someone showed faith in Sunderland 18 months ago.
Oh, there he is. Go on, Gab. Get that in there. Well done, mate.
Give us those eyebrow raises, Gab.
I would say it's brilliant for English football that we've not just seen 3 up, 3 down again. I think this is the exact season we've needed. Sunderland, brilliant. Leeds looking like they're going to stay up unless they completely bottle it.
You can't say bottle it now.
I couldn't say it with a straight face. Came out of my mouth and then, failed. So really good for English football. Hopefully we see that continue for the rest of the season. Let's see what happens when 2027 rolls around. The last thing we're going to do today, lads, on today's show, we've got an FA Cup third round weekend, one of the best weekends in the football calendar. Plenty of championship teams in action. So I've asked you both to give me a tenfold ahead of the weekend. Conor, let's start with you, mate. If you could just run through some of the fixtures and some of the winners, and then I think we'll dive into some of the key games and talk about them further. Who have you got to win?
Yeah, mine is, and apologies, viewers. I really tried to be serious with this. You'll see some more lists coming in just a little while, of which you might be quite surprised with in terms of the odds. But I've gone with Preston. Are we doing the odds now, Si? Do you want me to go through all of them?
If you just give me the teams to win, I'll give them the accumulator odds.
Okay, cool. So I've got Preston North End to beat Wigan in a narrow game, to be fair. Then I've got Forest to beat Wrexham. Sorry, Wrexham fans in the chat, but I do think that there is, that Wrexham one. I am on the fence a little bit for that one, because I wonder if Wrexham will go strong for that, and I think Forest will have to rotate. They're going to have to rotate for this one. So there has been complaints from the Forest side as well about the quality with depth. Leicester to beat Cheltenham, Ipswich to beat Blackpool, Norwich to beat Walsall, West Ham to beat QPR. But once again, I'm slightly on the fence with that one.
Oh, I don't like that one.
Brentford to beat Wednesday, Arsenal to beat Pompey, Gab, Burnley to beat Millwall, which probably, I don't know about you lads, but if we're having a conversation just about my 10 here that I'm picking out, that's probably the most evenly balanced game. Burnley to beat Millwall, that might go either way, and we can have a combo about that. And then I've got Chelsea to beat Charlton.
That's your 10, and it pays a stinking 41-1. You've picked out 10 fixtures at 41-1. It's quite a miracle, that.
Well, how much money am I putting on it? Am I just putting £1 on? If I put 20 quid on, it might look all right.
Hey, we'll see what happens, Gab. Luckily, Conor, you've been a sensible head on the show, but we've got the flamboyant Gab Sutton, who's going to run through his 10 fixtures now.
Guys, these are quite incredible as well. So, Gab, go ahead.
Right, I've got 4 upsets in mine. I've got Wrexham.
Only 4?
Yeah, only 4. Wrexham, I think, are going to beat Nottingham Forest. I'm backing Cheltenham Town of League 2 to beat Leicester City. I think Ipswich Town will beat Blackpool. I think Brentford will win at Sheffield Wednesday. I think Stoke will beat Coventry. I think Cambridge will beat Birmingham City. I think Chelsea will win at Charlton. I think Portsmouth will beat Arsenal.
Incredible.
I think QPR will win at West Ham, and Sheffield United to beat Mansfield. There you go.
That is amazing. And unlike you, Conor, he's actually produced some decent odds, because Gab's tenfold pays 73,750 to 1.
If you want to challenge me on any of these, I'm all for debating them.
I'll tell you what, we can jump into a few of them, because I think maybe Wrexham Forest is a really good place to start, because Conor, you've gone one way, Gab, you've gone the other. So it's a nice debate. I think you just see Wrexham really, really wanting to win this game in terms of the documentary, in terms of taking on a Premier League team, in terms of the game being at home. Am I correct? That's at home, right? I just think they can win this game. Absolutely. We've seen them beat Coventry at home. We've seen them win some really important games at home. And Forest don't look great right now. So Gab, give your argument agreeing with that, and then Conor, you can counter it.
Yeah, I think just the form as well. Wrexham have won their last 4 games. Nottingham Forest, I think, have lost 5 of their last 6. So yeah, I'm all for Wrexham pulling this one off.
And why? What makes you think Forest can edge past them, Conor?
I mean, they're a Premier League team, which naturally is going to give you a bit of a bolster. So that when I'm looking at sort of their rotation, they've got players like Douglas Luiz and James McAtee, Matt Sells, Awonyi, Marato, who all come in. I just think sometimes we look at the Championship, and if a team is doing well in the Championship, and I'm sorry to all people who have hope and prosperity in football, and I'm sorry for just sort of like stamping on your head here, but
does that include Man United, Conor?
But I just think Forest have got a lot of depth, a lot of quality and depth as well. I just think this might be a step too far for Wrexham, but you never know, and that is the magic of the cup, I guess.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see on that one. Gab, you are the EFL expert, so I'm leaning on you heavily here. Cheltenham to beat Leicester, you picked out. Seems like an eye-catching one, but we don't know what to predict with Leicester at the moment. Every single week, don't know what we're going to get. Cheltenham, how are they looking, and can they beat Leicester?
Yes, so Cheltenham Town, they actually had an awful start to the season where they only picked 4 points up from the first 10 games. But then Steve Cottrell came back. He won 3 promotions and won 1 FA trophy with Cheltenham Town in his first stint in the late 90s and early noughties. So he's a club legend. He's since gone on to manage higher in the Championship and League One, and he's gone back to Whaddon Road. And from that point on, it's been pretty much automatic promotion for Cheltenham Town or near enough. And so there's been an immediate transformation. The energy around the club is different, and there's a huge amount of positivity around the place, especially with new ownership as well. And I think Leicester City look kind of quite ripe for an upset. I think there's a lot of question marks at the top of the club, literally and figuratively at the moment. People are asking questions of Rudkin as well as director of football, and I think that uneasiness around the club can often rub off on the players, and I think that's what we're seeing this season. So you've got a Cheltenham Town who have a real upward momentum about them and a feel-good factor, and Leicester City who look like a collection of individuals. I think this is the kind of game that could produce a bit of an upset. So I'm going with Cheltenham.
We'd love to see upsets in the FA Cup, of course we would. There's a fixture I want to talk about quickly as well in terms of Doncaster Rovers versus Southampton, because Doncaster have been really poor this season, 23rd in League One. I think they've lost 4 out of their last 5. And this just feels like one of those games that Southampton simply have to win. And if they don't, that's when alarm bells really start ringing for Tondreka and potentially even his future at the club, depending on what they want to do moving forward. So a potential banana skin there, given Doncaster's form. Charlton Athletic versus Chelsea. Feels like Chelsea will probably go and win that one. Here you go, Conor. Derby versus Leeds. Bit of a rivalry here, isn't it? From Spygate, etc., etc. They used to meet at 12 o'clock on Sunday. Slightly concerned about going to Derby in the Cup?
I'm disgusted you just said that's a rivalry.
Wasn't there a fight at the baseball ground in the 1970s?
Yeah. There's always been a bit of back and forth, but
you're still crying about Frank Lampard, aren't you, at Ellen Road? No?
Yeah, we are. We're just looking down on him at the minute. But no, from a Leeds United standpoint, if we weren't to rotate and put kids out, it would be crazy for this game. I have no interest in the cup at this moment in time. I have no interest. It's all about maintaining Premier League survival, really. So Leeds don't have the. This could be one. This really could be one, actually. We're thinking about it because of how heavily we are going to have to rotate, and Derby maybe putting out a bit of a stronger side for this one, which you'd expect, as I said recently, especially in the game against Wrexham, and previously I think Derby have been decent. So yeah, maybe that is a potential upset, mate. But yeah, actually, I'll flip. If you want to flip my odds, producer Seb, and I don't like doing this because it's against Leeds, but I will go with a Derby win against Leeds.
I think it makes sense, and I think that's a good way of looking at things in terms of Millwall against Burnley as well. The Premier League teams in the relegation zone or in the mix have bigger fish to fry, and these Championship teams can sometimes just go there and and turn them over and get the job done. And the Premier League teams are sometimes quite happy to just exit the competition at the first.
I think
stage.
as well. I think as well, Si, what you were saying though is really important in terms of like you just mentioned Southampton there, but I mean, Coventry, I think have got to look at this game a little bit more specifically in terms of rotating a lot of their players. I think they need to do that. But teams in and around the Championship, especially those that need a confidence boost right now, the cup competition can really be a confidence booster, mentality-wise, and just actually getting a win on the board when you've not had, a circuit of wins. So I think that's really important for certain teams in and around the Championship.
Yeah, and 2 fixtures you picked out in your acca that I do want to talk to you about. Cambridge versus Birmingham. You're backing your Birmingham team to lose.
Yeah, I think Cambridge are... Neil Harris, I think, is a brilliant FA Cup manager. He's pulled off upsets as Millwall boss. I think they beat Premier League champions Leicester when Millwall were in League One. They beat Everton when they were in the Championship. So that... Neil Harris's teams are very good underdogs, and I think they can pull off a one-off result, combined with Birmingham's poor away form, where we've struggled to impose ourselves in certain games. I think Cambridge. I think there's possibly more value with Cambridge on this one, and I think Chris Davies is going to be judged more on league form. So, I would go with Cambridge.
And you're probably headline one, Portsmouth at home to beat Premier League leaders Arsenal. Feels like a throwback to, Peter Crouch, Jermaine Defoe, Fratton Park, 2008, whatever year it was.
Yes, I'm leaning a little bit on the fact that Liverpool lost away at Plymouth Argyle, who were actually relegated from the Championship last season when Liverpool went on to win the Premier League comfortably. And I think with Arsenal, they're on track to win the Premier League. They're on course to be very competitive in the Champions League. I would expect heavy rotation from Mikel Arteta. Fratton Park can create a raucous atmosphere. I think John Mousinho can cultivate, a great home support as well. Going to be one of those under the lights. Yeah, I think Portsmouth could have the chance of pulling off an upset.
Excellent stuff. And Conor, producer Seb's just got back to us. Leeds weren't even in your initial acca, but with Betfred, if you want to take Arsenal to beat Portsmouth out, as Gab's just argued for, and put Derby to beat Leeds in, Derby 4-1 for the win, and would take your acca up to 174-1, mate. It's a bit more.
I feel this is awful because I'm gambling on my own team here losing, but yeah, we'll go with that instead. Makes it a little bit more exciting, doesn't it?
It's not too bad. 4-1 Derby to win, by the way, seems like a good price on Betfred. I wouldn't mind getting behind that, given what Connor's just said. Finally, lads, just before we came on air, Manchester United parted ways with Ruben Amorim. So my last question to both of you, which we do for a bit of fun, is which Championship manager would you most like to see get the job at Old Trafford? And Conor, the answer might be different for you than it is for Gab, because I presume you'd like to see them completely fail and lose every single week.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the worst manager in the Championship and just giving him the reins. But I think for them, if we were to put serious heads on, I think someone like Kieran McKenna would be probably a really decent appointment. But yeah, I can't think of an atrocious appointment that I'd give them, to be honest. It's probably quite disrespectful to a Championship club as well, because I would need a terrible manager to take control of them to at least feel good. But yeah, I think the most logistical one for Man United is probably McKenna.
I think McKenna makes the most sense. I think the most entertaining would be Nathan Jones, though, Gab. Imagine him at Old Trafford running up the touchline, celebrating in front of the away end. Just imagine that. Who would you like to see?
I'll tell you what, it wouldn't surprise me if Lampard's on the betting odds and just won one as well. Maybe Roy Keane, former Championship manager, getting him in.
Hey, there you go. What do you reckon, Gab?
Well, I think there's one manager who would turn the Man United job down, and that's Chris Wilder, because he'd always want to stay at Sheffield United.
United.
Exactly, yeah. But the boring answer is I'd have to agree on Kieran McKenna. I think he's a fantastic manager, a really good coach as well. So I think he could be on his way to a
few in there as well. Producer Seb has mentioned Wayne Rooney, but there's Carrick in there. There's just former Man United players everywhere, isn't there? So they're all going to be linked.
Mark Robbins,
yeah, another one.
If going back a bit, Steve Bruce. Get them all back. Get all the gang back together at Man United. All the former Championship managers. Right. Thank you, boys. That brings us to the end of the Sportsman Untitled, brought to you by Betfred this week. Next week, I'll be with Benjamin Bloom, and we have a debutant in the guise of Callum Alston, a Charlton Athletic fan. We need to talk about Charlton. I think they're doing a reasonable job, and we can talk more about Nathan Jones if he hasn't left for Old Trafford. Thanks very much for watching. Please do make sure you like and subscribe. Get your thoughts in the comments down below as well. Where do you think the shock is coming in the FA Cup this weekend? But that's all from us this week, and we'll see you next Monday.